I'm glad you mentioned the Kickstarter because I'm sure there's a lot of filmmakers out there watching this who want to make a movie and they think Kickstarter or Indiegogo or other sites like that are the way to go. I actually did Indiegogo for two of my movies, and one of them was successful, the other one wasn't. So as someone who's run a successful campaign on the level that you did, can you tell us basically what are some keys to a filmmaker's way to get it funded?
Well, a lot of this comes from Kelly, my partner. She really has a handle on Kickstarter. She teaches Kickstarting. She gives like Kickstarting lectures and things like that. So she really has a handle on it. So she was really smart about how we organized our campaign. Really the key, more than anything, the key is to get the word out. So we spent about a month leading up to it, letting people know we were going to do this. So we took to social media. We talked to, we brought the artists involved. The artists in the movie became involved in the sense that they helped promote it and spread the word that we're doing it. So that by the time we launched, we already had people ready to jump on this thing. So you get early momentum, you get early speed moving towards your goal. So that was really important, and I think that served us very well. We put together some good rewards. This T-shirt was one of the rewards. We had another
It's a very
T-shirt.
nice shirt, yeah, I'm jealous.
Well, this and our other shirt, we had art by Jeff Easley. He also did the art for our stickers, and we brought him in early so we'd have some cool stuff for fans. We also reached out to a bunch of artists, and we licensed some art from them so we could make prints. And we made arrangements with them for them to sign them, so we made that a reward. So we offered really good reward tiers that I think keyed into what people who are interested in the movie are going to want to get. We didn't create rewards that were totally random. If you're interested in our movie, you're an art fan. If you're an art fan, well, this stuff might appeal to you. We tried to put together a good presentation. We tried to make it all very clear. One of the places that we did stumble a little bit, I think, and it's definitely a lesson for next time, we didn't plan out our stretch goals as tightly as I think we should have. And at the time, we didn't know. I mean, now looking back, I think we should have. And Kelly and I have talked about this. Really focus on what your stretch goals are going to be. Have that stuff planned out ahead of time. Really think about, are these things that are suitable as rewards for your stretch goals? And are they things that you can sustain, that you can roll out without increasing your costs or your stress level? So that's something that we'll look at next time. We offered a lot of reward tiers. We had a lot of different stuff. The downside of that is, what if somebody wants like one shirt and 3 prints and this and then different combinations? So that's something where we created reward tiers for everything, and it gets a little bit cumbersome. We also did backer kit to offer things after the fact, which on one hand is good. It helps you raise money for your film. But on the other hand, it does create extra logistical issues, especially when the time comes to figure out your shipping costs and mailing and what size packages you're going to need, boxes and things like that. So those are all things that you really need to put some thought into, I think, to help streamline the process and have it be as both profitable but also as stress-free as possible.
Now, did you handle the reward fulfillment yourself, or was that outsourced to another company that handled it?
We handled it ourselves.
Good.
There are photos floating around of our little army of helpers who came over, volunteers. We had a whole system in place. Again, that was totally Kelly. She also edited the movie. So I think there's probably a mentality, the organizational efforts of a really good editor and an ability to handle like a army sergeant, the Kickstarter stuff. But she had it all running really smoothly. We used a shipping company or a postage company to purchase our postage, so you get that at a reduced rate, and you can print it at home, including international stuff. We figured out our box needs early on. We figured out our envelope needs early on based on the size and weight and everything we were going to do. And then we set up assembly lines, and we just powered through a pretty good amount of it over almost a 3-day weekend. And then Seth and Kelly wrapped up, because they live down in D.C., so we did it all down there. They wrapped up the remainder of it over the following week. So we got it done fairly smoothly. Smoother than I was worried it might be.
This is something I think that you probably broke ground with when you did Plastic Galaxy, that then went on to affect the Toys That Made Us as well. And it's a question about rights and clearances, basically, because I'm a rights and clearances guy. I'm into that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious, like, when you have a company dealing with, like, Kenner, who is a defunct, dead company, what do you do in order to be able to show commercials of the toys, to show images of the toys, to show production drawings? What kind of rights issues could potentially come up when you do something like that?
Well, I always tell people make sure you have a lawyer. Make sure you have a lawyer who understands intellectual property. And before I answer this question, I also preface it with I am not a lawyer. So don't take anything I say as official legal advice.
That is a legal disclaimer, though.
Big disclaimer. But here's the deal. A lot of people don't understand fair use rules. They always are like, well, if I'm doing it for free, it's fair use. That is 100% incorrect. If you're doing it for free, you're still infringing on someone's intellectual property if you're infringing on their intellectual property. But one of the fairly safe established underlying supports of fair use is journalistic intent. So when you go in and you're making a movie about this stuff, it often falls under fair use depending on what you're doing. If we incorporated R2-D2 into our logo, can't do that. But if you're making a movie and you're talking about the R2-D2 action figure, you can absolutely show that action figure. The rules are different for books. They're different for print than they are for movies and for documentaries and for news. There's always these shades of gray. The rules for fair use are very gray.
Yeah.
It all has to do with what a judge decides. There's no hard and fast rule for any of this. Judges look at precedent and then they make a ruling on whether or not what you're doing is legit or if you should have gotten the licensing for whatever it is you did. Yeah. That's why we have a lawyer. One of our partners, Seth Polanski, is an IP lawyer. Is very, very handy. So he rules on everything. So here's the deal. Going into something like Plastic Galaxy, if you're talking about the toys, you can show the toys. You're allowed to do it. One of the things we would do is we really stuck to we didn't show clips from the movie. We showed clips from trailers, things that were released for promotional material, for promotional purposes. Same with any photos we showed of scenes from movies, like stills and things like that. They're all part of stuff that was released to magazines back then. Sometimes we would just show the magazine and instead of showing the photo. It's a very fine line. A producer at PBS once told me they couldn't get the rights to a photo on the cover of a Bob Dylan album, but they were interviewing the woman who was photographed on the Bob Dylan album, so she held the Bob Dylan album. And you just look at the album instead of finding the original photo and showing the photo, because you're talking about that. So again, not a lawyer. I'm a journalist. I'm a producer, so I have some experience with this. But always, 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 I cannot say the word always enough. Consult an intellectual property copyright lawyer, someone who knows this stuff. But when you're making a movie like this, you can lean pretty heavily on journalistic intent. You just have to be careful about how you approach it.
And for any filmmakers out there who are interested in something like this and want to do their own project, there are some services out there for free if you Google them. There are some law firms that will take your case potentially on a case-by-case basis, but something to look into.
One thing, especially if you're in New York, and it depends on the nature of your documentary, there's a law school, and other schools do this as well. Law schools have things called clinics, and clinics are usually free legal services that the students perform under the watchful eye of real lawyers. And in New York, at least, there is you don't have to be local to New York to take advantage of this, but there's a Cardozo Law School has an indie film clinic. And if you're making a movie that has something of a social impact kind of bent, so not for my movies, but for a movie that's looking at other types of stories, they take on cases where they will do all your legal work. They will guide you in terms of contracts. They'll guide you in terms of intellectual property and rights and things like that. And that can be really useful, and it's free. And if you don't mind working with people who are not quite as experienced, but again, working with real lawyers, that's a great resource that I think filmmakers can take advantage of. And other schools might have something similar, so it's worth looking into. There are people watching this stuff, and there are people who are thinking, I want to delve into this. I've got a topic I want to explore. What would you tell them? What's the key takeaway you would give if you had an elevator ride to give someone some advice? How do you make them take that first step where they say, I bet I could do this myself? Okay, how do you take that step to doing it yourself?
I heard a really good quote lately that kind of reminded me of what we're talking about, and I can't remember the whole thing, but I'm going to just kind of try and paraphrase it, and that's being static is paralysis, and you can't go anywhere when you're paralyzed, so you got to take the first step. And, especially now, it's so much easier to take that first step. Like, for me, when I first started the Fight Nerd in 2009, I didn't even have my own camera. I was borrowing it from my girlfriend who had it from her school. So we were basically every weekend, like, getting her gear and using their studio to do Final Cut editing, which I was learning as I went.
Yep.
And now things are, way different because you've got smartphones. So you don't need much to get started anymore. I mean, if you even want to get, quote-unquote, a little bit more professional looking, you can buy, like, a handheld selfie stick, and now you're stable all of a sudden. So all you really got to do is just start. And, that could be either starting with filming yourself, filming other people, whatever you want to do. I mean, there's a lot of ways to do it now where you don't have to spend a ton of money to get started. There's free editing software, free graphic software. Really, the first step is just, like, doing it. And the biggest thing I tell a lot of people when they ask me stuff is, like, don't worry about who's going to watch it, because, quite honestly, for the first year, no one's going to care what you're doing. If you keep going after that first year, then people will start caring. Unless you're, like, really amazing, then you'll get, some views. But for people to really start caring, it's going to be you consistently committing to what you're doing on a constant basis.
I think that's one of the things that I had to realize that just started, and you can't get hung up. You think, oh man, it's a movie. I'm going to have to shoot it. And am I going to get enough people? And then am I going to figure out what the real story is? And then am I going to edit it? And then if you think about the whole project in the very beginning, your brain's going to explode. You're going to seize up and you're not going to do anything. And for me, it was learning, you know what? Just what's the first step? Just do that. First step is finding some artists. You don't have to find them all. You don't have to worry about you're going to get the best ones. Just find anyone. And then just start calling them or emailing them or whatever. And as long as I just took that step, and as long as I said, screw it, I'm just going to jump right in. And as long as I said, I'm not going to even worry about what this monster is going to be when we're done, it becomes much more manageable. I think a lot of people get afraid because they start trying to think, like you're saying, am I going to have a lot of viewers? They start worrying about that. It's like, dude, you haven't even filmed anything yet.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that yet. Don't worry, how am I going to edit it? Don't worry, is this story going to come together in such and such a way? You don't know. And if you start, like, sweating that stuff before you've even, like, taken those first steps, fear is just going to grind you to dust.
Yeah.
So I think... whether it's a podcast, whether it's a movie, whether it's a book, whether you want to put a band together and start writing some songs, whatever, just do it. And don't worry about sucking, don't worry about any of that. Just launch yourself out of that airplane and just, check your parachute as you're falling. It's fine, but you got to take that leap.
Yeah, I think every art form, whether it's filmmaking, music, painting, drawing, whatever, it's all problem solving, and you can't solve those problems until you're faced with them. So you have to go in there, you have to start making the mistakes and say it's okay to make mistakes. I've had so many horrible mistakes that I'll probably never publicly talk about. I mean, I had a time, probably one of the biggest ones I ever had, was I did, in a matter of basically a day and a half, I filmed from, like, here in New York, and I went up all the way upstate to Albany, which is like 6 hours away, then went all the way down to Connecticut, filmed some other stuff. It was like, we filmed like 3 different events in 18 hours, and I lost all the footage because of a hard drive crash.
Ooh,
so everything
I know
was
the feeling.
So I had to learn basically there about the magic of backing things up. Lesson learned the hard way. So, you don't know it until you have to do it, and then once you get it done with, it's not so scary the next time.
Yeah. I think people make up problems. They don't make them up. I mean, they start thinking about problems that aren't yet problems. Forget about trying to solve them until you encounter them. Don't freak yourself out by inventing problems that haven't happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? People are
like
like,
snowball into imaginary avalanche.
Yeah, I mean, you want to take some precautions. Like, I probably would have said to you, there's a risk of your hard drive crashing. You might want to start backing up. But on the other hand, if you're like, well, what if the car explodes while we're driving? I'd be like, dude, don't add to your plate of issues that could be issues. You're just going to freak yourself out. Like, don't, you'll deal with it. That said, I've had cars break down on shoots. So that's something we always think about now.
I've had cameras break, so,
Oh, yeah. When I used to work for the news, I dropped a camera that I was shooting on. That sucked. It was my camera, too. So I would also advise insurance. Insurance is good. But, yeah, just go out there and do it. All right, sorry. I hijacked your interview and made it my show. Welcome to the Brian Stillman Show. We're here interviewing Matt. Matt runs Nerd News. Nice to have you here.
I'm so confused and scared right now.